What's going on, knuckleheads? Welcome to my Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Sheeraz and Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda post-fight live show right here at FightersRep. I apologize for being a little bit late, but this is a card, that I predicted. This is a card that lived up to the hype, I think, and then some, right? Especially when we take into consideration that Times Square card that was very underwhelming recently in New York, right? We were hoping that that card wouldn't bleed into this one, and it certainly didn't, right? But that's the first thing I want to say about this card. Fantastic card, lived up to the hype, very exciting all around, and I appreciate you guys joining me here at the Fighters Rep, where you get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about the sport of boxing. So help me God, from the mind of an attorney and promoter. Listen, let's start out with the beginning of this card, right? I sort of started watching at the Tsutsumi fight, right? Tsutsumi. Apparently he has a brother that's a boxer too, and he's good too. Listen, the kid did what he was supposed to do. He fought a guy, I don't even remember his name right now, but he fought a guy, finished him, looked good doing it, did it in style, and looks like a pretty exciting contender. I kind of caught the tail end of that fight. I really started paying attention at the Imam Khataev versus David Morrell fight. And I did want to talk about that fight first, right? I thought that was an excellent fight. I thought that fight, despite what the broadcasters were saying, was deceptively close, right? I thought David Morrell was really, really trying to inch his way back into that fight because it really did seem like Khataev had control of that fight, was landing the harder, more effective shots. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I agree with the broadcasters that the judges got it wrong there. Imam Khataev won that fight. I thought he landed the more effective shots, but I did think it was a bit closer than what the broadcasters had it, because I think what happened was it was so unexpected for this guy to do the job he was doing against David Morrell, right, who we just saw, put on a good performance against David Benavidez, that when the momentum did swing Khataev's way, everybody was really shocked, and maybe there was a bit of bias, considering that he was putting on an overwhelming performance, right, way more than we expected. But I still think Morrell kept it close and competitive. That being said, I think they got the wrong guy giving Morrell the win. I thought that was a bit messed up, if I'm being honest with you guys. I thought Khataev won. He dropped Morrell in the fight. Could have potentially, stopped him, but you could tell, he was preserving himself. Very muscular guy. And, when you're that big and you're throwing big shots, you're going to run out of energy. And I think that's what was happening to Khataev as the fight went on, but he did pace himself. I do think, again, he deserved the win, but David Morrell gets the win in a decision that wasn't the best of the evening, right? Then we had another exciting fight in Puello versus Subriel Matias. I knew this fight was going to be a banger. That first one that I was talking about there, the second one I was talking about, Morrell versus Khataev, was a banger of a fight. Matias and Puello did the same thing. They brought the heat. Everybody knew it was going to happen. So, that's how Matias fights. He just tries to walk you down and get you out of there in every round. And I thought it was another really close fight. I was probably in agreement with the broadcasters on that one. I would have maybe slightly inched it towards Puello. I thought he did the better work, but really Matias was relentless, and I couldn't really argue too much with that decision, right? I thought the decision for David Morrell was worse than the decision for Matias. I thought there was a better argument for Matias to win that fight. And to be honest, I think Puello will be back. Apparently he's going to fight the winner of Matias, who's supposed to now take on Dalton Smith, who looks like a really good fighter as well. I think that's going to be a really good fight too. It's interesting, watching these guys from all over the globe take on each other. Puello will be back. He's a really good fighter. It could have gone his way easily. He definitely deserves a rematch. But I'm really happy for Subriel Matias. As a guy who they had a homecoming for, got beat at home in Puerto Rico in front of all his fans by Liam Paro. And it was a beautiful thing watching him complete his dream, complete his mission, right? Which he said after the fight was to become champion once again after losing it in his hometown in Puerto Rico. He did it. It's nice to see people accomplish their goals, especially a humble guy. I mean, him and Puello were so humble and respectful throughout this whole fight, throughout the lead up. And I really appreciate that in this day and age where, you know, you can't even have a fight anymore without somebody doing something over the top or goofy. I mean, and it's kind of, I think it's starting to get, you know, a little played out. And I think it's directing people's focus away from the sport and toward, you know, the debauchery that goes on with, you know, the trash talk and the boxing. They're pulling panties out of, you know, out of bags and fishnets and I don't know what else. I mean, it's just getting, you know, it's becoming like an episode of Jerry Springer, really. And you don't want that to happen with the sport of boxing because you're going to attract the wrong people, if I'm being honest with you guys. You know, if they think that's what's going to attract casual fans, I think they're wrong about that. That's just going to attract the wrong crowd. But nonetheless, it was nice and refreshing to see a couple respectful guys take on each other. That said, and before I continue, please subscribe to the channel, join the channel, drop any questions or comments you have in the live chat. That said, you know, I did predict the Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda fight. Let's go on to that, the co-main event of the evening. I thought this was a fantastic fight, and I predicted that it could go one of two ways. That either Shakur was going to whip this guy because his style plays right into his hand, or I said this was going to be the guy to bring it out of Shakur Stevenson, to show us that Shakur Stevenson is a fighter. And I also said that Zepeda also needed a big name like Shakur to, you know, let him appeal to the masses in boxing. And I said that it was more than likely going to go that way, and Shakur Stevenson was either going to win a unanimous decision or a split decision in a grueling fight, in a tough fight. And that's what it ended up being. You know, I was pretty happy that I got that prediction pretty spot on, actually. And I was happy because it really benefited Shakur Stevenson for him to go through a fight like that with Zepeda, who was absolutely relentless throughout that fight. And it benefits Zepeda to get a little bit more notoriety, taking on a big name like Shakur Stevenson. And Shakur Stevenson is a big name, I think, for the wrong reasons, right? He's popular, but everybody thinks he's boring and conservative and runs around. But tonight he became a bigger name for all the right reasons because he fought an absolute warrior in Zepeda. He allowed his own warrior to come out in front of other people. People saw he wasn't running. He's just a very good boxer. And I thought it was a close fight, really, the first half of the fight. You know, I thought Shakur started to pull away in the second half of the fight. But Zepeda was still making it competitive, right? So I would say like through the first 5 or 6, maybe it was even or close to it. Maybe Shakur had nicked it by a round. But then he started to separate himself with his technique as I expected he would. And he started to win the rounds by a small margin, right? So Zepeda was making it competitive, but he was winning the rounds. And it was an impressive performance from Shakur. Now, I think what would have really put Shakur over the top is if he would have gotten a finish over a guy like Zepeda, who's an absolute dog. But, you know, I can't hold that against him. Zepeda's an absolute beast. He had never lost before tonight. And Shakur beat him, you know, I think, I wouldn't say in a dominant fashion, but I thought it was convincing enough, right? I didn't think it was a split decision or anything like that. That being said, I thought the judges had it a little wide, right? I thought it was a little bit closer than the judges had it, but I would still say, you know, Shakur won it by a significant margin. And it was a fight they both needed, just like I said. And now they move on to bigger, better things, man. I think even Zepeda, I think his stock actually goes up because of a fight like that, especially with all the new fans he made in the United States. And I think Shakur Stevenson, I mean, I really think this revives his career tremendously, you know, because the knock on him is, you know, the constant crap you get from the casual fans where, you know, he's running, he's scared, you know, he's a runner, he's a track star, you know what I mean? It's not the case, really. I mean, it's not the case. It wasn't the case tonight. You know, he showed he could stay like right in the pocket and you can't hit him. and you can't hit him clean. And he's a master. He's a technical master in the sport of boxing. And it was nice to see the American with a little bit of Puerto Rican heritage in him go out there and do his thing and do a great job. It was also nice to see Zepeda, do his thing. Great fight. If you guys didn't watch it, you should, go back and check out these fights. This was a great card all around. And I really enjoyed it. Now, finally, before we get to the main event of the evening, I'm going to ask you guys one more time. Please subscribe to the channel. Join the channel to help me continue to build. It's just $9.99 a month. And get your Fighters Rep gear in the link below. I'm dropping content almost daily for you guys. It's going to be, a place for us to gather, talk boxing. This is a place, for gentlemen. This is Knucklehead Nation, the best boxing fraternity on the planet, where we treat each other with respect and, really have good conversation about the sport of boxing and everything else related to combat sports. So please subscribe and join. So the main event of the evening was a great fight as well while it lasted, right? It was an exciting fight at the very least. I wouldn't say it was very competitive, but it was exciting. And I was a little bit surprised, because I expected Berlanga to have a better showing than this. And I really did. I picked Berlanga to win a close fight. I thought it was a pick'em fight. I thought Sheeraz could have won as well, but I picked Berlanga only because it was in New York. Only because I felt that Sheeraz was coming up in weight for the first time fighting at super middle. And I just felt like it was going to be difficult, right? I could see Sheeraz doing it. And I thought if it was the old Sheeraz that I became a fan of, that he could do it. But I was a little bit worried about his last performance, right? And that's why I mentioned, perhaps this move up in weight class is going to benefit him, which it seems it did, because a lot of the times when fighters are dehydrated, and I saw this a lot as a promoter, when fighters are too dehydrated, they just can't pull the trigger. Maybe something happens to the nervous system. They just can't pull the trigger. And I felt like that's what happened to Sheeraz in his last fight. And I felt like tonight sort of confirmed that, right? That fight against Adames, I definitely think the weight cut affected him now, considering the way he performed tonight and considering how he had performed before the Adames fight. Sheeraz tonight just looked great, man. He was sharp. He was fast. He's long. He gets so much leverage on his shots. And, you going into this fight, you said to yourself, Berlanga's the power puncher. And you knew Sheeraz was a puncher too, but you didn't know how he was going to look at this new weight class. And I'm here to say, I thought he looked more a power puncher than Berlanga did. I'm not entirely shocked by that because it seems that the weight gain did help him. And that's a real thing that a lot of boxers and fighters need to take note of. He was the more powerful man in there tonight. And he gets so much leverage on his shots with that 6'3" frame at 168 pounds. It's crazy. And he's fast. He's twitchy. So if he gets you with it, you're in big trouble. He's also a very narrow, slim target, a difficult guy to deal with, man. And he's got a chin. I mean, Berlanga hit him with a couple shots there, and they didn't really seem to affect Sheeraz at all. So, I got to say, man, I'm very impressed with Sheeraz. I got this prediction wrong. As much as I nailed the Shakur prediction and thought it would be that way, I got this one wrong. I did say that I thought Sheeraz could definitely win this fight if he was old Sheeraz and if it wasn't sort of a fluke night due to crazy weight draining that caused his performance against Adames. And I think tonight proved that. Sheeraz is a hell of a fighter. Sheeraz is a hell of a fighter. He's a problem for anybody at 168 pounds. He's fast. He's pretty durable from what I can see. He throws in combination. He's ruthless. And he knocked Edgar Berlanga out, guys. I mean, he stopped Edgar Berlanga. And he dropped him 3 times in the process of doing so. I mean, it wasn't a fluke at all. He was landing shots clean. And Berlanga really, I mean, with all the talking he did prior to this fight, and I know he was, trying to build up the fight, but man, he really talked himself way up high and took a really hard fall way down low in this fight. And it's tough. It's going to be tough for him to come back from getting beat up like that in New York in the 4th round. I mean, this was not competitive, really. It wasn't. Sheeraz, man, I don't know who he goes against next. We had Antonio Tarver say he thinks he could beat Canelo. I don't think that he's lying when he says that. Shout out to my fellow Florida boy, Antonio Tarver. But yeah, man, Sheeraz is a problem. If he's firing on all cylinders, he could beat just about anybody with that frame and the speed and everything else. So exciting card. I don't know what's next for Berlanga. I think he needs to rebuild. He's a guy that I feel like hasn't really lived up to the hype and the potential we saw from him in the beginning of his career when he was knocking everybody out in the 1st round. I think he needs to get back to basics. I think he needs to really be built up again, take some good competition at his level, figure out what his level is and go from there, because I do think he still has, potential. I don't want to see him go by the wayside. He is a kind of fun character and personality in boxing. And, he's going to be popular in New York with the big Puerto Rican population they got up there. I do want to see him come back, but tonight was the night for Hamza Sheeraz, for, David Morrell, even though I thought he lost, for Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda, but especially Shakur, who looked great and finally showed the world that, he is who we think he is, who the hardcore people think he is at the very least. And just a great night overall for boxing. I feel bad for Katayev, but I think his stock rises big time in this. He probably gets some big fights on these next ring cards or Saudi cards or whatever they are. And Tsutsumi, man, watch out for him. Watch out for his brother. Looks like some real great talent coming out of Japan. You could tell the monster has really inspired some talent out there. You've seen how fantastic, I think, Japanese baseball players are some of the best in the world right now with Shohei Ohtani. And it looks like their boxers are not too far behind either. You know what I mean? So I'm very excited to see what comes out of Japan in the next few years. But great card overall, man. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section. If you want to drop something in the live chat, you have any comments, suggestions, questions, let me know what you guys thought about this card. Did you agree with the judges' decisions tonight? Very exciting stuff. Subscribe, join. You won't regret it. Fighters Rep, Knucklehead Nation. We'll talk soon.